The most dangerous moment in any deal is after they say yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Futurist Mindset Show. My name is Tessa. I'm here to introduce you to Reagan Rodriguez. Reagan is a futurist who teaches stratosphere wealthy legacy families how to become impact investors.
Welcome, everybody. Today, Tessa and I are going to be talking about one of the biggest reasons that deals fall apart. And it's usually not the numbers. It's what happens after the handshake. That's been my experience. A lot of people think the deal is won when that seller says yes. In reality, what happens is often the exact moment where the deal starts to die, or maybe I should say I want to talk about when it starts to die. Because what I want to go over with you guys today is to break down how real operators close deals without losing that momentum, because we want to have clarity, we want to have control of the situation.
Yeah. So I know today we're going to go through, just have some questions for you around that, Reagan. Like you said something really strong there. Why do more deals die after the handshake than before it?
Yeah, and I think it's just because once that seller says yes, most people, they tend to relax a little too early. They think that the hardest part is over. But that's not the reality. The reality is that is the most delicate moment in the entire process. So the trust is there, the momentum is there, and hopefully the alignment is also there. But it's still fragile. So then what happens? People hand that deal off and they maybe send it to lawyers. They disappear for a few days. I remember early on, I used to say things like, I'll update the paperwork and send it later. And the moment they do that, then energy drops. So then fear enters. And then the other thing I've noticed is there's something else that enters the room, and it's called confusion. And then there can be other opinions that also enter that room. And so a deal that felt alive suddenly starts getting cold. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
and that is that the biggest mistake that you think people make right after a verbal yes? Or do they make more mistakes?
It just happens.
It just happens.
It's just one of the things that can happen. I would say that the biggest mistake, that's the rule I want people to remember today, is you never outsource momentum. So in other words, when you get a yes, that's not the time to step back. I'm glad you brought up that. What's that worst mistake? Because that's the time to move closer. You get clear, you keep the process alive, while that trust is still, if I can use that warm. So the mistake is thinking great legal can take it from here, right? Meaning, oh, great, man, I'll have legal take it from here. No. Instead, legal should support the close, not replace the close, if that makes sense.
Right. So, and obviously you're not saying that you should not use lawyers.
No. I'm not anti-lawyers. That attorney absolutely has a role. The problem is not attorneys. The problem is timing. A lot of the times they're trained to kind of reduce that risk. They're not trained to preserve the momentum, which is what I do. So if you bring lawyers in a little too early, it's been my experience that then if you bring them in too early before the business, before there's an understanding of the fact that everyone's fully aligned, then what happens is things slow down. Then they start redlining language. Guess what else they start redlining? It's just then they question the tone. Then they look for whatever could go wrong. And now the deal is being filtered through through fear. Yeah, and we don't want that. We want it, as I mentioned earlier, we want it filtered through alignment, not filtered through fear. So I'm not saying do not use lawyers. I'm of course not. I am saying do not let that attorney take over before the humans have finished closing that deal. Hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, so if legal shouldn't take over right away, what should happen first, I should say?
That's a good way of putting it. What should happen first is very simple. The buyer and the owner should walk through the deal together in plain English. So you want to stay away from any kind of clever language. You don't want any kind of legal, I used to have a friend that would call it theatrics. It should just be simple. It should be a direct understanding, meaning what are we both agreeing to? Who is doing what? How is value also then being created? How is equity handled? You might also want to see what happens if something changes. You want that shared understanding before the legal refinement, because it's been my experience that this is how those real deals are then going to stay alive.
Gotcha. Okay. You mentioned documents, in plain English. Like, which documents would you be talking about? What?
At the simplest level, you usually just need two things. First, a consulting agreement or an advisory agreement. And then the second thing is one kind of share agreement or equity provision if equity is a part of the agreement. And then that's it. Because at this stage, Tessa, you're not merging oil companies. Okay, we're aligning incentives between just two adults. So the document should be very clear, and it should be clear enough that both people understand them without needing some kind of a decoder ring. Yeah.
Right. Well, and you mentioned it's important to go through those together live, just email instead of emailing them over.
Well, the main reason for that is because, as I mentioned earlier, silence is going to kill deals. Remember when I said some people say, we'll let the lawyers handle it now. No. When you email, so similarly, when you email documents and then just walk away, you're creating a vacuum. And vacuums get filled with doubt. So that other person starts reading into every sentence. Maybe their spouse looks at it. Their friends might look at it. And then their accountant looks at it. And during that time, what's going to happen is someone's going to say, I don't know about that line. And now you're no longer managing the meaning of the agreement. Right. So fear is managing it for you. That is why I prefer to sit side by side if I'm in person. And if not, then stay on Zoom with a like a screen share if we happen to be remote. But what I want to do is I want to walk it together. I want to go line by line. Because what that does is that then keeps the trust intact.
Absolutely. I think that's important. They're asking questions too at that time if they have any, right? So you're kind of getting past any hurdles that they might be running into. Perfect. Well, now what actually is happening psychologically when somebody says, just send it over and I'll review it?
Yeah, that's a good question, because what does happen psychologically is that they're moving from certainty into uncertainty. So when they're with you, they can feel your calm, they can feel the clarity, the intent, but then maybe what happens is when they leave that conversation, all they've done or all they have is a document. And you know what else? They have their own fears. And then human beings naturally scan for danger when something feels important. So small things start looking big. Neutral language starts then now feeling threatening. And then that emotional momentum that originally helped create the deal, I've noticed it then starts fading. So this is why so many deals die in what we call that review stage. And it's not because the structure was wrong, Tessa. It's because the connection was lost.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Now, what if the founder starts getting nervous about equity?
Then I slow it down and I make it simple.
Mm-hmm.
I explain that the equity is not being handled away for nothing. The equity is earned through a value creation. And that's an important distinction. I do not get equity just for showing up. I get equity only if I help create measurable value in that business. So if that does not happen, then no equity is owed. When you explain it that way, what I have noticed is that then that founder will stop seeing equity as a loss and he starts seeing it more as alignment. As I mentioned earlier, that's what we want to do, is be aligned.
Yeah, that's perfect. What if someone who's watching today is thinking, I don't want to come across pushy or manipulative when I close? I'm one of those people that would feel that way.
Yeah, I used to think that way as well. And then what I realized is that if you're actually doing it correctly and as the way I'm teaching it, then it's not going to be manipulation. So let's call it real closing is not manipulation. It's reassurance. It is helping both sides feel safer, right? Feel clear, aligned enough to move forward. So the pressure, another way of putting it, pressure is going to say, sign this now because I need the deal. We're not doing that. We're doing reassurance. We're doing, let's walk through this together. Mm-hmm. So we both have an understanding exactly of what we're agreeing to. Those are two very different energies, aren't they?
Yeah.
Closing is not about trapping people. It is about removing that ambiguity.
I like that. Absolutely. You talk a lot about protection and kind of minimizing, risk. If someone is taking a minority stake, what clauses matter most from a protection standpoint?
There's actually 5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, the first one is dividend policy. Okay, because you can own a piece of a profitable company and still never get paid if there's no distribution discipline. Mm-hmm. The second one is what I refer to as preemption rights. What does that mean? That means that if shares are sold, then the other side gets the first right of refusal. And then the third one is going to be is drag and tag rights, which helps prevent one person from blocking a sale out of ego or hesitation. The fourth one is what I call a complete clause. So where instead of creating some giant legal war around competition, you put real financial consequences on poaching staff or customers. And then the fifth one is reserve matters, meaning certain major decisions require a mutual approval. So those 5 clauses are going to protect the cash, the ownership, the exits, the behavior, probably also that decision making.
Gotcha. Which out of those 5 do you think people overlook the most?
The dividend policy, yeah, by far, because most people get excited about owning equity, but they then forget to ask how cash actually then flows. I learned that lesson the hard way. You can have a nice percentage on paper and still never see $1 if the majority owner decides to leave everything inside the company. So for me, a dividend policy is not optional. It creates that economic discipline.
Gotcha. And can you explain a complete, I mean, it's sorry, not complete, compete clause. I've heard that said, non-compete clauses are out there. It sounds different than the normal non-compete. It's a compete clause.
Yeah, it is different. You're right, because a normal non-compete often turns into, as I mentioned above, like legal fight. And that can be expensive. It can be emotional, and it's hard to enforce as well. So a complete clause changes the game. That's a good way of putting it. So instead of saying you can never compete with me, it says if you take staff or customers, there's a price attached to that behavior. So instead of a giant legal war, now it becomes a billing issue, a debt issue, a financial issue. In this way, it is much cleaner. It also reveals intent. So if someone gets upset by that clause, the natural question is, why are you planning to take, why are you planning to take people or customers? Right?
Makes sense. So out of curiosity, what would a good closing meeting actually look like?
It would be calm. It would be simple. And it would be direct. If it's in person, I want to sit next to them, not across from them, like a courtroom. If it is remote, right, because I'm going to be on the same team and we're going through things together. If it's remote, I want the Zoom open, screen share on, and the document in front of both of us. Then we go through it line by line. This way we're not rushing, neither one of us. I'm not over explaining. And there's also no kind of weird sales energy. Because what do we want? We want clarity. And the key is this: we do not end the meeting with, I'll revise it and send it later. Because that's when the momentum dies. A good closing ends with clarity and the signature while everyone's still together.
Gotcha. Are there certain words or phrases people should avoid during that closing process?
Yeah, I would avoid phrases like, trust me, it is standard, don't worry about that, or my lawyer will explain it later. Don't do that, guys. Those phrases create distance, and for me, it creates suspicion. Instead, use phrases like, let's walk through this together. Or this protects both sides. If something, or maybe if something feels unclear, we then fix it now. So I want this to be clear, not clever. Those kind of phrases lower that resistance, because what it does is it then makes that person feel included versus them feeling like they're managed. That answers the question?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Are there other words that actually increase trust during a close that maybe you didn't go over?
I think simple words, phrases like in plain English. Because here's what that really means. It only works if it works for both of us.
Right.
So we want to make sure that deal is fair, and we're not, we do want to align on the incentives. Those phrases calm people down because they show that your goal is understanding, not taking advantage in any way.
Beautiful. What do you think is the biggest mindset shift that people need if they want to stop losing deals at the finish line?
Yeah. Stop thinking that closing is just paperwork. Closing is emotional continuity. The documents do matter, but the real job is preserving that trust, and the momentum, because you want to see it all the way through up until the signature. So if you treat closing like it's some administrative staff, then you're going to lose the deals. If you treat closing like the final stage of the alignment, then what I've noticed is you're going to keep far more of the deals alive.
That's great. And what do you want people to remember the next time a seller says, yes, let's do it?
I want them to remember this. That is not the finish line. That is the momentum to protect momentum. So you want to stay close. You want to keep it simple. You want to keep it clear. And you want to walk through the paper together. Do not disappear. Do not outsource the control. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, never outsource the momentum.
Very, very good. Very strong. So if somebody watching realizes that they probably lost deals in that handoff, what's the first thing that they should change?
Stop treating the verbal yes like the end. Treat it like the beginning of the most important part. Stay in the room. Keep the conversation alive. Use simple paper. As I mentioned earlier, use plain English. And close while the trust is still warm. That one shift, just that one shift will save people a lot of deals.
Very helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for helping here with the questions here. If this helped all of you, remember the rule. Never outsource momentum. That one principle alone is going to change how you close forever.
Beautiful. Well,
on that note, will you close us out of here like you always do, Tess?
Absolutely. Well, if you have any questions or would like more information about Fifth Avenue Capital or the Underground Club, you can go to 5thaavc.com and be sure to hit the bell. When we go live, you'll get notifications. We'll see you all next time. Thank you.